All right, so now I'll be moving on to the basing. As you can see, I've already got a base just color on there. I think I used uh, Castellan green, or yeah, Castellan green. That's just a base coat. So, you know, if anything, uh, if you can see through any of the basing, you know, you see green, not the black or the overspray from the primer. And I don't bother painting the edges because I paint a black trim on that, something I saw on YouTube and thought looked pretty cool. So basically, I'm just gonna use some Mod Podge, get it on the brush, and then paint it basically onto the base. Then I will use some little stones that I got from just like a hobby store or something. Try to find ones that aren't too big. Stick one or two onto the base, and then I'll dip the guy into a basing sand material that I don't know, I've had for so long that I don't even know where I got it from. But yeah, that's what I'll be doing. And this brush just is like a random brush from some hobby kit, nothing special. If you get a little bit on the model, that's all right. Makes it look a little more realistic if his foot has some dirt on it. And if you don't get it everywhere, that's okay too. Just gonna get, these rocks are good. It's like a little bit bigger. This one's gonna stay. There you go. Let's put another one on there. So that's on there. Just gotta dip them in here. And just tap it off. And that's the first part of the basing. Just getting the texture of the sand and the rocks on there. And I'll just keep going. So here are the Free Company with their bases partially done. Next will be to use some wash on there, and that's what I'll be doing next. So now I'm going to be working on shading over the sand and rocks. I like to use the Agrax Earth Shade. You know, it's just to make it kind of a uniform color, fill in the cracks. And yeah, this process doesn't take too long, so we'll do that, show a couple, and then I'll just fast forward. And this can get kind of messy, but it's not that big of a deal. Who knows? Might need more. I think I've used quite a bit of this stuff. You know, it's mainly just to get that shadowy effect on your base. Like you'll still see the raised parts of the gravel. As it dries, it'll just look that much better. Do one more. And I also go right over the top of the rocks too. It adds a little bit of color variation to those bigger rocks that I use. Don't worry about gravel coming off. That'll happen. And you know, and with the unit, you're going to want similar style basing for them, you know, unless you're doing each individual model separately or something. But for the most part, you're probably going to want some kind of uniform look. And yeah, so I'm just going to keep doing that. And yeah, got 35 more to go. So I'll just fast forward this. Alright, so here they are with the shading on their base. Didn't feel like you guys needed to see all of that, so I just kind of skipped ahead. And then next we will do a little dry brushing and adding some static grass and some tufts, and we'll be almost done. Alright, so now I'm gonna be dry brushing a little bit of green on kind of like the gravelly area. Not so much the rocks, not the bigger rocks, but maybe some of the smaller rocks. But I'm gonna use Lauren Forest, just a lighter green than that. What was that? The Castellan green that I had on the very bottom of that base. So just a little bit of highlight, and then remember to like wipe off the excess, because I don't want a whole bunch of paint on here. So I'm just gonna dab a little bit, wipe a little bit off and then kind of like brush it off. And I'm just going for a little bit on some of that gravelly area. You know, I'm not pushing really hard onto this, just so it's kind of like, you know, oh, hey, there's some green undertones in here. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. So, and I don't usually worry about wasting too much paint on this process. You're not using a whole bunch of paint here. And if a little bit of paint gets on your model or a bigger stone, it's okay. Grand scheme of things, no one's going to notice the tiny little piece of paint that accidentally got on his shoe or whatever. And if there's a spot that's too hard to get to, just leave it. And that's kind of what you're going for. Just a light spackling of green onto that gravelly look. All right, and from here I'm just going to fast forward and I'll periodically show some close-ups.